A short but punchy 8-week marathon training block is now in the bank. My strongest marathon performance to date is run, and it's time to put this one to bed. But before we do that, let's have a quick look back over the training block, crunch those numbers, look at the stats, and go through some of those shoes that got me through the training block. And of course, at the end, I'll give you my thoughts on what I thought went really well in the training block, what I want to change in future training blocks, because there was one thing that stood out to me when analysing this training block. And then we can look forward to the end of the year where I'll confirm a couple of races that I've got coming up before the end of the year, plus one extra which I'm really hoping I can get to. So let's get straight into some of these numbers in the final 8 weeks of marathon training, or I should say the whole 8 weeks of marathon training, including race week. So let's get straight into it. Week 1 I ran 72.8 miles, week 2 was 81.23, week 3 was 66.12, week 4 was 54.62. This was a low point in the block. Week 5 was 83.22. Week 6 was 74.90, week 7, the first taper week was 55.98, and then race week was 60.28, which included the race. And of course, all kilometre conversions will have been on screen. Now, before I share the other stats, the reason for that low point in the middle there was I ran a half marathon in that 4th week, which was fantastic. It went really well. I did a standard session on the Tuesday, and then I just tapered it down for the final 5 days. I used a Puma Faststar Nitro Elite 3, absolutely incredible shoe, my go-to racing shoe rolling into these winter races and hopefully into next year, unless something else magical comes out. But I did always question how my body would handle it over a longer distance, and the half marathon beat me up slightly. I've got to be honest with you, the legs were rather trashed after that half marathon, which I wouldn't swap that time for the world. Absolutely delighted to get that one in the books, and those Puma shoes are the real deal. But I definitely needed a week to recover after that. So that meant that there were no sessions in that week, which in turn, actually, I was quite grateful to log the mileage that I did, but none of it had any form of intensity. And effectively, I did lose in that specific phase, probably in one of the peak weeks, some really key and crucial workouts. I'll put on screen now the times of those weeks for training in terms of my training hours. This is an improvement from previous training blocks because for me, I tend to hover in and around that 7 to 7.5 hour mark. So to get a few of these weeks into the 8 and a couple into the 9s was really good. Again, just remember your body is not aware of what pace you're running. It's just purely aware of the effort that you are putting in and how long you're out there time on feet. It's such a basic but simple metric to go by. I always check my time on feet because ultimately if I've been training for 7.5 hours, then I'm going to improve if I increase that time on feet for a longer period of time. So that was the goal with this marathon training block, just to increase that load. That obviously translated into a better performance, which is great, and again that's something to work on in future training blocks. And in terms of elevation, I'll put that on screen as well. This is pretty standard for me, in fact maybe slightly on the lower side. I sometimes hover in and around the 3 to 3,500 foot depending on where I am training, what I'm doing, and where I am in a training cycle. If I'm in a specific phase, then yes, this does look pretty normal because I'm doing a lot of my stuff out on the flatter industrial estate, but getting my easy runs done out on the hills. However, if I'm in, let's say, a winter training block, which I'm going into, or I'm not in a specific phase and I'm looking to just strengthen up a bit, I will take those hillier trails, take some of my workouts out there and get a bit more elevation in the legs. So in terms of the specific phase, it does look about right, but on an average week, if you average my whole training across the year, this would be slightly on the lower side. And the last stat before we roll into the shoes is how many long runs did I do over 20 miles? I think a lot of people have this magical thing of hitting 20 miles and above in a marathon training block to feel like you're prepared, you're ready, covering a decent amount of distance. For me, this was actually the lowest marathon training block where I've gone over 20 miles. So in that final 8 weeks, I only went over 20 miles 4 times. It would have been 5 if it wasn't for that down week I had to take after the half marathon. Normally I hit 6 or 7, which for me is about my sweet spot. I will throw in a quick caveat here. The 9th week out, I didn't do anything marathon specific. I was just doing some single threshold work, but I did make on that weekend, so that was actually technically 8 weeks out, I did hit 20 miles that weekend. It just wasn't included in this final 8 weeks, so technically I probably did do 5, but I did feel like I was missing that one in the middle there. And what I tend to find is I hit 20 to 21, maybe 22, sort of like 8, 7, 6 weeks out, and then I might hit more like 22, 23, 24 miles. 5, 4 and 3 weeks out. So I tend to get 2 or 3 bigger, chunkier long runs in. This time around, I only really got one of those done, and that was 3 weeks out in the peak long run. So that went really well, but I failed to kind of find that middle ground. I think it was just a 20, 21, 22, a 24. I'll have put them all on screen. So that was definitely lower than previous marathon training blocks. However, where I did make up for that was midweek. I had plenty of midweek sessions in that final 8 weeks where I was going anywhere from 15 to 19 miles, which was some marathon specific work wrapped up in a 2-mile warm up and a 2-mile cool down. So I think the biggest one there was 3x7k. That totaled 19 miles with a warm-up and cool-down, and then 4x5k, which again had a 2-mile warm-up and cool-down, so that was around 18 miles, and there were plenty of others that were 17, 16 and 15. And in this 8-week section, I used 9 running shoes. We're going to go through those now. One of them hasn't been reviewed yet. You're going to see that very, very soon. That came in late into the training block, and I also have a couple of other shoes that I need to get out for review as well over the next couple of weeks. So we'll go through those now. We'll work from the bottom of the list. This is the most mileage logged, and then we'll flip it to most used. So starting at the bottom, the Puma Fastart Nitro Elite 3, that was used in the half marathon. And then we roll up to the 2 shoes that had 2 runs in them in terms of mileage, both in and around that 15-mile mark. The Mountain to Coast R1 and the Brooks Hyperion Max 3. Then we roll on to the shoes that got 3 runs in them. The Leaning Fadian Challenger 5, one of my favourite shoes, we'll talk about that shortly, and the Puma Velocity Nitro 4. This is the one I have not reviewed as of yet, so stay tuned for that one. The Asics Metaspeed Sky Tokyo did only get 2 runs in, but in terms of the number of miles logged, this was higher than any of the others that we've talked about, because I got a couple of big long runs. This was when I was testing that shoe to see if it could be my marathon shoe. Great shoe, I really enjoyed it, but it didn't give me enough or make me go, wow, yes, this is going to be better than the Adidas, and I'm very glad that I chose the Adidas in the end. The Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3, that got 4 runs in it, and again, the mileage wise was around 50 miles. I used that for a few sessions. Again, just tinkering whether I was going to use that for race day, get a fresh pair. But the age-old issue that I have with that shoe reared its head, where it rubs the back of my heels after being in it for a long period of time, so I had to sack that one off. And then the Asics Gel Nimbus 27 logged 142 miles in this training block. Absolutely incredible. That one blew my mind. I did not think I was going to get on with that shoe at all. Completely a type of shoe that I would never normally touch. But what a great shoe that was. So yeah, really decent amount of miles, and that took all the easy miles. And then of course, the Adidas Pro 3. That took the majority of the marathon training sessions, and then of course the marathon itself. Flipping it round slightly to the number of runs, so rather than mileage, this is the amount of times I've used them. There's a couple of changes in the order. We'll whiz through this one. The Puma Fastart again once at the bottom there. Again, the Mountain to Coast, the Brooks Hyperion Max and the Sky Tokyo. Those 3 were just used twice. Then we've got the Puma Velocity Nitro 4 that was used 3 times, and the Leaning Fadian Challenger 5. Oh my word, I wish I'd have got that one in sooner. Absolutely loving that. And one of the shoes I got to review is another leaning shoe, so stay tuned for that one. The Puma Deviate Nitro Elite 3, that holds strong at 3rd place, but then the top 2 flip around. So again, the Pro 3 came in with less runs, but obviously more quality there, taking a lot of those marathon sessions and of course the race itself. But that Gel Nimbus 27 from Asics, again, just really surprised with that one. Used that so much, had other shoes to test, didn't bother really going back to the Mountain to Coast, just stuck with that Asics Gel Nimbus 27. Really impressed with that one. I do have a couple of other easy run shoes in now, so it is going to be pushing pause slightly while I get some miles logged in those, but absolutely fantastic for that marathon training block. So there we go, those are some stats and figures in terms of shoes, in terms of like mileage, elevation, time on feet, long runs, that sort of thing. So what would I change? What went well in this training block? Now I'm putting it to bed and I've had a chance to reflect on it, had a week off running, had some time to go through everything, and now crunching the numbers, looking at the stats. I think the first thing I would make sure I do next time is do my best to get an extra long run or 2 back in there. Again, maybe it's a confidence thing. Obviously, result-wise, it didn't make a difference. I ran my fastest marathon, but I think ultimately, deep down, coming away with a 2:39 is great. You can never sniff at a PB, but I do still think it's below par for what I can achieve. I'm never going to be the best marathon runner. My frame, my build, my weight in particular, 90 kilos, pretty much 89. I think I lined up about 89 kilos. I'm just not built to go long distance. I'm very much a short distance runner. This has come to the forefront for me in particular over the last couple of years when I can really excel over those 5 and 10k distances. Marathon training is fun when I get going into it. I do enjoy it. I didn't really enjoy last year's block. This year's block was great fun. Only had a week or so where I had a bit of a wobble where I was kind of just starting to really feel that fatigue. But again, I found myself at that point just under eating, so I got back on top of that and I felt really good again. That can often do that to me. I'm usually really good with eating. I just kind of slacked off a bit during that middle phase and I just felt a bit low. Got on top of it, felt great, and overall just had a great experience. Really excited to do another marathon training block next year. But I really have come to the realization that I'm never going to be, as I said, I'm never going to convert to a really good marathon time. And that's fine. I'm okay with that. As long as I can just keep improving myself and be the best version, I guess, of me. That's super cheesy, isn't it? The best version of me that I can over that distance, then I will be happy. I've got bigger dreams to chase over the shorter distance, bigger sort of like time targets. Next year, I'd love to try and go sub 15:30 in the 5k. I'd love to get closer to 32 minutes in the 10k. I'd love to keep pushing those two distances down. That's definitely going to be the goal for me in 2026. However, I am really keen to get another marathon training block. And I also love the benefits I get from a marathon training, which I think is why I feel a bit let down that I didn't get another long run or two under my belt, because I do find that those things really just, for fitness, they are so good. And the other thing, it's not necessarily training block wise, because I think if I look at it over on paper and just think about it all, really happy with it once again. Last year I rushed it, but I had a really good time in that second half of the block. This year I kind of got myself much better prepared, and that really led to a strong 8-week build. The summer this year was my highest mileage summer ever, really clocking some decent 70 and 80 mile weeks, and that was fantastic. That, as I said, set me up really nicely for this training block. But I think shoes was a bit of an issue for me, in particular the racing shoe. So the Pro 3 is an absolutely spectacular shoe, and I wouldn't want to be without it. I do, however, know that there are plenty of better racing shoes out there. I wanted to give the Pro 3 a chance this year, and it just did really well. What I never find from the Pro 3 is that pop and responsiveness that I can get from another type of racing shoe. But what I do get is that stability from R1 to 26.2, and it was just such a comforting feeling running in something that I've done so many miles in training on race day. However, I guess what I found on race day is I didn't feel like I mentally had that advantage with slipping on those faster shoes. And so next marathon, I want to make sure I'm not racing in the Adios Pro 3, definitely training in them. I haven't found a better training partner yet, but I definitely want to make sure that I've got a better racing shoe in my arsenal so that when I do line up on race day, I'm feeling a bit lighter and a bit fresher. Otherwise, it was another really strong training block, and I'm very happy with that. So I mentioned what's next in my previous video for Aberdeen Marathon, and I alluded to a couple of races. So I can confirm I'm going to be running, as I always do every single year, the Newark 9 and then the Hereford 10k. I haven't actually entered the Hereford 10k yet. I've got to do that. I recommend both these races. I actually think the Newark one is sold out, but I think Hereford's still open. I tend not to go to cross country that much. I tend to do hilly road races. Cross country definitely suits the shorter, lower center of gravity runner. Doesn't tend to slip and slide everywhere as much. Someone like me, it looks ridiculous. It feels horrific, and I'm just absolutely no good at it. So I'd rather attack some hilly road races, and so that's why for the last couple of years in particular I've done the Newark 9 and the Hereford 10 miler. It just forces me into ditching time and just aiming to run for like a course PB and just trying to run strong on the hills. So I'm going to be doing those two. I do actually have an entry into Telford 10k. I'm actually at the moment not sure I can get there, which is gutting. I entered earlier in the year before it sold out because I thought, you know what, if I can bounce off of Abingdon feeling good, I'd love to go to Telford and attack that. However, plans have come up that mean that that weekend might not be viable for me. So if I can't, I'll end up selling the place. But I do hope to get a third race in there at some point, and I'm going to be aiming to try and make it a flat and fast one. I'm happy to travel a little bit for it. I just want to try and rip one fast effort before the end of the year if I can. So there we go. That's a wrap on a marathon training. Let's roll in. Let's put that in the past now. That is done and dusted. We will bank that one. Let's roll in to some faster work. Really excited now. So hopefully some shoe reviews coming your way away over the next few videos in amongst the usual content, and then of course some races coming up in November, the New at 9, and then maybe 2 in December. We'll see if I can get to Telford. I really hope I can, but if not, I'll sell the place and I'll try and get myself booked into another flat and fast race, and of course the Hereford 10K. Hopefully I'll see some of you there. Hopefully I'll see some of you at Newent, and let's just keep rolling until the end of the year. If you enjoyed this video, guys, I'll make sure I leave a couple on screen now. If you missed the Abingdon vlog, I'll make sure I leave that one up here. If you missed the race recap, I'll leave that one down here, and I'll see you guys over on one of those.